For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. The Deshaun Watson case has become a daily exercise in what's going to happen next. Will he be suspended? How many trials are there? How many cases are there? Will he go to jail? Will he have to pay a fine? Will he have to pay out in civil court? What's going to happen next with Deshaun Watson? Will the Cleveland Browns cut him? Are they going to continue to pay him? Are they going to keep Baker Mayfield? Are they going to let Baker Mayfield go? Are they going to trade Baker Mayfield to somebody? What will they get back from Baker Mayfield? What Browns players are going to want to leave because Baker Mayfield is gone, etc. It's become a daily exercise. But no one's asking the real question. What if Deshaun Watson was a regular person? What do I mean by that? What I mean is, how much humility and humbleness will Deshaun Watson generate or garner within himself if he's suspended when he has $40 million to come back to the next time he plays football, and he's made over $100 million or more before he got in trouble? Think about it this way. I once knew a guy who got a job working with me in a company, pretty large company, and he filled out his application. And if you've ever had a regular job, on the job application, it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? It used to say, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Now it says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Now, being convicted of a crime cannot be a determinant whether or not you get the job. But lying on a job application can. And this guy, who was in his mid to late 20s, wrote on his job application, no, he'd never been convicted of a crime. And when the company did its background check, they discovered that when he was 18 years old, he had gotten drunk and went out in the streets and made some noise and had gotten arrested for public drunkenness and disturbing the peace, spent a couple of nights in jail, and it went on his record as a misdemeanor. Keeping in mind that this was back in the days when the question was, have you ever been convicted of a crime, as opposed to have you ever been convicted of a felony? So because he said no on his application, because he genuinely, honestly had forgotten about it, because he had turned his life around, stopped drinking, and become a different person, and so he didn't remember that arrest almost 10 years prior, because he had forgotten about it, and said no on his application, and the company discovered that he had in fact been arrested, which means that he had in fact told an untruth on his job application, he was fired. Now, the guy made only about $50,000 a year, so when he was fired, not only did he lose the opportunity to continue making that money in the current position, he would have to forever go through life explaining, why did you get fired from this job? Or when he did background checks, he would have to continue to forever going through life explaining that arrest. Now, immediately looking for work, the next interviewer is going to say, why were you fired from your previous employer? And if his previous employer was the one where he got fired for lying on his job application, he's going to have to say that, because if they call for the reference, they're going to ask, and the company's going to say he lied on his job application, and that's why we let him go. So it's a stigma that he would not be able to get rid of. Now, I worked with another guy who was accused of cheating on his timesheet. Now, it's against the law, in case you don't know this, to clock in for somebody else at a job. It's also against the law to clock in and out or say you're working when you're not working, because if you have a time card or a timesheet or an electronic clocking in device, those are government documents, and you would be falsifying government documents. So I knew a guy who was accused of cheating on his timesheet. Now, his supervisor had actually cheated on his timesheet and gotten fired for it. And another guy that worked for the company assumed that if the manager was doing it, then the assistant manager must also be doing it. So this guy caught the manager doing it and went to the corporate office and told the corporate officers that the manager and the assistant manager were cheating. So the manager was fired because he was cheating. Now, the assistant manager was fired because he was cheating, but the assistant manager proclaimed his innocence, but he was fired anyway. And so when he went for his next job interview, he had to answer the question of why were you let go from your last employer? And he said, the company accused me of cheating on my timesheet. So the very next question in the interview was, did you? And he said, well, no, I didn't, but they accused me of it, so they let me go. Now, when the company called his previous employer for a job reference, the previous employer says he cheated on his timesheet. So it's a stigma that this guy would never be able to get rid of. Because while he was looking for work immediately following that termination, he was going to find out that the company was saying that he did it, all the while he was saying he was accused of doing it. So these two individuals that I knew both had to humiliate themselves and become more humble in order to get a job because they had stigmas of something that they did that was seemingly dishonest that they had to live with and had to try to explain and had to try to fight to get past for years to come. Now, how does this relate to Deshaun Watson? It relates to Deshaun Watson this way. When Deshaun Watson is cleared of these charges, or when Deshaun Watson no longer has to deal with these charges, he goes to court, he's found guilty or not guilty, he's suspended by the NFL, he takes 6 games off, 12 games off, 17 games off, he misses a season or 2. Once this passes for Deshaun Watson, he will come back to the Cleveland Browns or to whatever team decides to pick him up and sign him, and he will go right back into making $40 million a year. So for these two guys that I knew, the lesson was be mindful of what you do and make sure that it's something that won't deter you from being able to find work. But nothing Deshaun Watson can do will deter him from being able to find work at his chosen profession. So will he really learn a lesson from his situation? Will he really learn not to do the things he did because he'll have more money than he did before? He'll be playing football again at the highest level, and there'll be no one to tell him, you know what? No, you can't do this. And even if he doesn't ever play football again, then Deshaun Watson's got well over $100 million in the bank. So what will the lesson be? Will he learn from his mistakes? Will he learn from the actions? Will he become a better person? That's the question that sports talk radio, and that's the question that Argument Sports TV or Sports Argument Television should be asking. Not, what will the Cleveland Browns do? Not, what are they going to do with Baker Mayfield? Not, how many cases are there ultimately in total? The question should be, what will Deshaun Watson learn, and will he gain some humility and humbleness from his situation? My answer is he probably won't, because he's super rich. He probably won't because he doesn't have a, you know what, dog, don't do that guy in his stable. Somebody who will tell him he's being stupid when he's being stupid. By not having that individual in his employ or in his posse, Deshaun Watson will probably continue doing what he did before with no one telling him he shouldn't. And that is the biggest crime that Deshaun Watson will have to deal with. Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel, and visit my new website at the link in the description below, and follow me on Facebook at Eric J on Sports 1 and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J on Sports. And for Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think.